Tonight we are live from London and across the pond in Canada for a uranium-focused StockBox premiere. Well, joining us on the panel tonight for this uranium-focused premiere, our guests are Rick Mazer and Rebecca Hunter from Forum Energy Metals. They are listed on the TSXV with the ticker FCM, where we're going to be talking about their Nunavut uranium project in the Thelon Basin, which is in the Nunavut province of Northern Canada. Dwayne Parnham, the CEO of Madison Metals, they are on the Canadian Stock Exchange with the ticker GREN, where we're talking about their Madison North and Madison West uranium project in Namibia. And Brian Robertson, Director of Appia Rare Earths and Uranium, also listed on the CSE with the ticker API, talking about their uranium and rare earth project in Ontario. So the format, as usual, is to begin with the 10 to 15 minute interview, followed by the open Q&A session for 15 minutes. And this is, of course, your chance to put your questions to the director speaking using the live chat on YouTube. Please do join in the conversation either through the YouTube live chat or find us on Twitter, #StockBoxPremiere. Please also hit that like or subscribe button if you are indeed enjoying the show this evening. The directors are, of course, bound by market rules, but they will do their very best to answer your questions as best they can. Well, to kick us off tonight, let's welcome our first guests. That is Rick Mazer and Rebecca Hunter from Forum Energy Metals. Thank you very much for joining us today, both of you. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Mark.
It's great to be talking to you both. Of course, Rick and Rebecca, you are on StockBox a fair bit, but it's the first time we're doing a live show with you. So very excited to welcome you both here today. So, of course, what we're going to be talking about is the Thelon Basin, your project there, which is perhaps the most prospective region in the world for discovering new high-grade unconformity-style uranium deposits outside of Saskatchewan's Athabasca Basin. And the company have a discovery from recent exploration with grades of 2.25% over 11 meters. So it's great that you've got that discovery. And I know we did our live from site when you were on site earlier on, just a couple of months ago. So I wonder, just to start us off, perhaps for new and existing investors, could you perhaps give a high-level overview of what you've got and the opportunity of the uranium portfolio that you've assembled? And if you would like, I do have the slides, just let me know whenever you would like me to bring them in.
Sure, Mark. Well, listen, you couldn't have said it better. We have a major uranium discovery in probably the latest, newest frontier for unconformity style deposits in the Thelon Basin of Nunavut. The Thelon Basin, in our view, is a geologic analog to the Athabasca. And as you know, the Athabasca is very prolific. It produces 15% of the world's uranium in 2022. And with our new discovery and the existing deposit that's up there right now, held by Urano, the French nuclear corporation, we think the future for production of uranium in Nunavut is very positive and very real down the road.
And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about this unconformity style deposit, because I think many people might not be familiar with exactly what that means. Could you perhaps give an overview of the uranium prospectivity in that region specifically, why it's different from the Athabasca Basin, and the significance of unconformity deposits?
Well, that's where Rebecca comes in. She has her PhD thesis on uranium, unconformity deposits of uranium, and she has worked in the Athabasca Basin and the Thelon Basin for 15 years of her career. So I think she's the one that's more qualified than I.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I can answer this. So the unconformity model is just a certain type of uranium deposit. So There's many different types. There's about 15 types actually. But the unconformity type is important. It's at the unconformity or a contact between kind of an older kind of sandstone, usually sandstone basin, and older rocks underneath. And they have certain characteristics that actually make really high grade deposits. And so what I mean by high grade is the average uranium deposit in the world, this includes all types, is about 0.1%, even lower, a lot of deposits. And unconformity deposits are typically 0.5% or higher. And the Athabasca Basin is 1% usually, and then up to 20%. And that's mining grade. That's not just, intercept. So really rich basins. And then a lot of times it can be high tonnage as well. So some of the biggest uranium deposits are over 100 million pounds. So that's kind of why they're important. They can weather really bad bear markets because they're such high grade. So that's one of the reasons why they're very attractive. And again, there's only a few places on Earth that actually have the right geological conditions to host them. And the Thelon Basin is one of these. It's the most similar to the Athabasca Basin. Same kind of geology, same kind of timing when the uranium deposits were being made. It's being affected by all those same events. And it's right in our backyard. It is just not explored. It just hasn't seen the exploration as the Athabasca has. So that's why we're there, and that's why we're excited to be there, because it's essentially all this opportunity is open up there to find big deposits.
Well, yes, big deposits. It's that's what we want to hear, isn't it? I like what you said there, high grade, and they have the ability to perhaps weather some of the market swings because they are so high grade. And of course, you do have that discovery. I know this was a big part of your PhD. You've been working on this for quite a while, and of course, news flow from Nunavut has been constant in the last few months, with I think only news just last week on the Ned anomaly. So I wonder if you can bring investors up to speed on the recent and current exploration activities on site.
So yeah, we've been trickling out the news over the last few months. So yeah, we started when we did the StockBox at Beaver Creek. That was kind of our main area. We focused in two areas this summer. So we went back to Tadagak. So that's the Tadagak deposit to try to work on that. And then we also got one hole into the Ned target, which is one of our many other targets in the basin that we think, have the potential to host, more deposits or even bigger, kind of really classical unconformity deposits. And so that was the Ned press release that we had most recently. And so what that just shows is that, we have the right geological kind of characteristics. We didn't get to drill very deep in that hole, but we have everything there to drill again. So we got really nice alteration, and we have the kind of the pathfinders, we call it. So kind of other elements besides uranium in the area that will, show us that we should go there and continue drilling there.
Hey, Mark, let's bring up that location map now. So Rebecca can sort of point out.
Sure.
Yes. So anyways, the Tadagak is the main area, kind of closer to Orano. It's an area that's, only 5 kilometers away from Orano's project boundary. Mm-hmm. And then Ned is a bit to the north, at the northern part, closer to the Kigavik deposit, which is another one of Orano's deposits. So
okay. Yeah, so we can see there the Athabasca Basin, and north of there is a Thelon Basin where you are. I think perhaps the next one has a bit. Yeah, okay. So now we can see.
So this one, So Ned, I can't really point to it, but it's up in the Thelon Basin. So we're actually drilling in the sandstone, looking for those kind of classical unconformity deposits like MacArthur, Cigar, and then Tadagak is the one star to the. In the middle, I guess it's really the central part of our land package is where Tadagak is. Okay. And so that's where, that's the area that we're really excited about. We intersected, we kind of tested some new structural models there to basically the stuff that I did in my thesis, kind of defining where the geometry of these kind of mineralized zones are at Tadagak. And so we got back there, drilled it at a true angle. And that's where we got the 2.25 at 11 meters, and then we stepped out from there to really show continuity of the trend. So 200 meters step out, hit really great high-grade mineralization again, and that was some of the previous press releases that were in the last month.
Okay, I think you might have some more details there. Yes, indeed,
Yeah.
on that drilling campaign.
So exactly. So this is Tadagak. We have that blue area, light blue to the dark blue is basically a gravity anomaly. It's alteration. That's what we're targeting because that's where the uranium mineralization is always associated with. And so the first press release was at 2.25. So we know, we hit that at a true angle. We understand that we have these steep lenses, kind of subvertical lenses now. So we have, a width now of mineralization of 50 meters that can be expanded. We'll show that in the next slide in more detail. And then we did that 200-meter step out into some areas that hasn't been drilled very well, but the alteration was there. So I was very confident that we were going to hit mineralization, and we did. And we'll have one more hole that's pending probably in another week. We'll put that out. Again, it's a really nice mineralized hole. We're just waiting for assays.
Okay, fantastic. And here's your X section.
Yeah, so the section here is just to show that we, the hole that we drilled at Tadagak, the first one there that had the nice 2.25%, with some grades up to 7% in there. But we have these stacked or kind of subvertical lenses. So that wasn't what we thought initially, especially when I was drilling this back, in the last cycle. We thought it was more of a shallow dipping pod of mineralization, but now we know we have these stacked lenses. And basically this hole only tagged into 2 of them. So the deposit that we have so far is actually, has quite a bit more mineralization over a 50-meter width. So that's kind of what this section is showing. And it shows that, we can expand the width. That'll be a focus of subsequent years, is to kind of see if we can broaden this to be greater than 50 meters wide, and then extend it along strike. That's the big thing. So, and strike just means along trend. So we have the mineralization where it is. We have 250 meters of known mineralization now, and now it's to expand it all the way the 1.5 kilometers that this entire kind of anomaly is resting in. So that's the big upside here, is that we have the ability now to expand this quite significantly.
Okay, well, that's very nice to hear. And there's just I know there's some pictures of core there. That's always very nice. We can just leave that there for a moment. But really the idea then here is you want to expand the width. You've identified these stacked lenses, which you say helps you understand a bit more the deposit that you didn't perhaps understand before. I know you have quite aggressive plans for 2024 with a camp construction bigger than what the temporary one was this year. And I think about a 12,000 meter drill campaign. So, I mean, what are the main aims of this program?
So, yeah, we want to get in there and we want to drill it hard because we know that we have mineralization. We want to get to a 43-101 or be able to expand and determine if there's a major resource here quickly. And so we have 2 drills up there currently. We actually brought up another drill this summer by barge. So kind of in the background of all this exploration work, we also were logistically planning for subsequent years. So we have another drill up there. And so we want to go hard with those 2 drills, get 12,000 meters, bring in the camp. We'll do the camp in May, drill from June to October, and hopefully have even better results. So we'll focus on Tadagak. We're going to build that. And then again, like all those other deposits, we'll get back to NED or zones. We'll get back to NED, see what's there, and as well as all our other areas.
You have a lot of targets, I believe, don't you, as well? About 20, I think. I mean, I guess you'd be prioritizing them.
Yeah, we have about 20, and they're good targets too. They're all gravity anomalies. Some of them have been drilled, so it's confirmed that they have good alteration. Other ones will be tests, but they're in the right corridors and the right geology.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Rebecca. That was fantastic. We do have now time for any questions from the audience or that were sent in before. So either you or Rick, I'll read them out, and you or Rick can jump in and ask them. So let's see if there's any that have come in. Here we go. Where do you see we currently are in the uranium bull cycle from your vast experience? That's probably more for Rick. No offense, Rick.
Well, we have baseball over here in Canada and the United States. We think it's the early innings. Over there, I guess it would be cricket. How long is a cricket game? It's pretty long, isn't it? Well, we think it's early stages in the nuclear cycle. The supply-demand imbalance is totally out of whack. There needs to be more uranium coming out of the ground. The demand for nuclear power is rising, and there's just not enough coming out of the ground. So that's why I think you've seen the price of uranium ticked up from about $55 to almost to $70 in the last month and a half, really. So we're very bullish on nuclear energy and the need for more uranium mines.
Yes, indeed. Okay, another question that's come in here. Does FMC intend to grow the uranium portfolio, or are you going to just focus purely on Thelon now you've got that discovery?
The Thelon is going to be, that's our main focus right now. This is a major discovery in our view. We have a tremendous portfolio of good projects, drill-ready projects in the Athabasca Basin, because as you know, Mark, I started this company in 2004 with Anthony Baum, our chairman in London, and we've got a lot of really good exploration projects in the Athabasca, but our plan there is probably to farm those out to partners and focus on the Thelon Basin on this, as I say, which we think is a new developing world-class discovery.
Well, if you feel that way and you've got that discovery, that's probably one of the better approaches to take. Go at it hard, as Rebecca said earlier. So any other questions that come in? How do you think the recent geopolitical events may impact uranium pricing?
Yeah, I think that's affecting the equity markets more than uranium pricing. I don't listen. If we're going to get to net zero 2050, as the world seems to want, we've got to replace coal-fired power generation with more baseload energy, and nuclear is really the only answer for baseload energy. It truly is. Wind and solar are good incremental sources of power, but how are you going to run a manufacturing plant unless you have a good, consistent source of power? So, nuclear can provide that, and small modular reactor technology is starting to gain huge acceptance around the world as well. Many of those small modular reactors are being considered and developed as we speak.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I think the future is pretty bright for uranium, given everything that's going on. Another question that I can see has popped up. Would you consider a UK listing or joint venture projects to UK listed companies? We are short of uranium ops here. Yeah, that's definitely for sure.
We have looked at a listing in the UK in the past. To be frank, it's costly, but we do want to reach out to investors in the UK, and certainly, as we grow as a company, that certainly would be a consideration. On that note, Rebecca and I will be in London in November. We'll be attending the London 1-to-1 in London on November 20 and 21. So we'd be pleased to meet any and all investors in the UK there that would like to learn more about our project and about uranium.
Okay. Well, I might be able to meet you. I know I'm in London the week after for Resourcing Tomorrow, the Mines and Money big conference. So maybe I can come over a little bit earlier and meet you guys in person. It'd be nice to actually meet you in the flesh. I have a couple of questions that were sent in just prior to starting, and it is regarding the big drill campaign, that 12,000 meter drill program. Is the company cashed up, ready to undertake this program into next year?
Yeah, no, we're going to have to raise those funds for sure. And that budget, we're still working on the budget for that, but we will be looking for funding down the road at the right time and at the right price.
Okay, indeed. And with regards to First Nations, that's a big thing to consider in Canada. What are the relationships like with First Nation groups in the Nunavut area?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, in addition to all our kind of prep work, getting up there and doing the program we did this summer, we had a huge amount of community engagement. We consulted a group out of Saskatoon called Creative Fire. They're Indigenous owned, and they also have a lot of work with the nuclear sector. So they've been really instrumental in helping us build relationships up there. So we do have a really good relationship with all the regulators. We have all the permits. And we're really focusing on the community of Baker Lake and building those relationships, which have been all very positive to this date. So, and we continue to do so. That's it. As much as the exploration is super important, but all that engagement is a big part of our focus as well.
And I think, Mark, something your audience should know is that Nunavut is a territory in northern Canada where land claims have been settled. So the Inuit people there have made an agreement where they own certain parts of surface and subsurface lands in their territory, and the rest is Crown land. So that's a big difference in working in Canada here, is that land claims are settled.
Okay, well that's good to hear, but it is very important, as Rebecca, you mentioned there, to get the First Nations on side and work with them. So I'm pleased to hear that is a big priority for the company and is already well underway. Another question that came in, and it's quite a good one, I think. It's regarding the program next year again, but it's a question that's asking: would you possibly look for a joint venture partner to assist with the drilling of Nunavut?
No.
No. Okay. Good.
No, this is a major discovery.
Okay.
I'd like for Forum to take this as far as it can.
Okay, well that's very ambitious. That's good to hear, Rick. I have another question here. This is actually not relating to Nunavut or the uranium, but it's the Janus Lake project. I know we've spoken about that before, where Rio Tinto recently withdrew from that project. Is there any plans here? What are the plans for this prospect going forward? Is the camp still there? This is a question that someone would like to know.
Yeah, we've made an arrangement with Rio Tinto to regain 100% of that project. As part of that agreement with Rio Tinto, the main part of that agreement is that they get a 20% back in right at the point of feasibility study, and they have to pay for all exploration costs and costs of the feasibility study. So if that's $50 million, they have to pay us $50 million to get that 20% back in rate. They've pulled all the camp out from the or that will be pulled out this winter, and we've got the property has good assessment work in it to keep it for another 15 years. So the Janus Lake project is still a very good project. In Rio Tinto's view, obviously they didn't think it was big enough for them, but it's big enough for a lot of other copper producers, or the potential size is big enough for other copper producers. So we think when the copper market is conducive to getting back and exploring there, it's a good optionality play for Forum to have this very good copper project.
Okay, thank you. I believe one question has come in. Yes, there we go. Does the FMC board have an exit strategy or disposal plan for the business, or maybe elements of the business?
Well, we're in the business. We're in the discovery business. That's where we excel. We're a technically driven team. Rebecca here is one of the top uranium explorationists for these types of deposits, in my view, and we've made great progress under her direction in a very short order, and in her first year as VP Exploration. So we're here to make a discovery, build up a mineral resource, get it to a preliminary economic assessment, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both very much. That puts us bang on time. Thank you very much for taking the time this evening. I do hope that I can meet you in person. Maybe we can have a sit-down interview.
We'd both like to meet you in person.
Yeah, or I can maybe get out to your camp next year. We will see.
Yeah.
I won't promise that yet. But are you both are you both quite busy now, or do you have time to stick around for the round table at the end?
I can stick around for the round table.
Okay, so that will be in about an hour after the next two companies talk. So that would be great if one of you could stick around to talk about all things uranium. But for now, thank you both very much, Rebecca and Rick, from Forum Energy Metals, and hope to see you again soon, and obviously keep track on how things are going at Nunavut. But for now, thank you very much. So what I'd like to do now is bring in our next guest. That is Duane Parnham from, the CEO of Madison Metals. Good evening, Duane. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you doing, Tim?
Very good. So where are you calling from? I know it's Canada, but whereabouts in Canada?
I'm Canadian, but I'm down in Florida right now. So, yeah, spending the winter down here.
Okay, I don't blame you for that. Yeah, well, it's good to have you. It's good to have you on the show tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, Madison Metals is a North American listed mining and exploration company. You're focused on sustainable uranium production with over 50 years of mining experience, and 22 of those years in Namibia, where the company owns an 85% interest in an EPL, that's an exclusive prospecting license located in the renowned Erongo uranium province. So this is quite interesting, really. But before we get into some of the details here, I wonder if you can perhaps just give the high-level overview of Madison, the company, and the two areas, Madison North and Madison West Uranium, the projects in Namibia.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. So those that know me, I've spent a lot of time in Namibia, 22 years or more, 30 years in the industry, and I was the founder of Forces Metals that licensed a uranium mine in Namibia to the northeast of where we're working now. And the backdrop here is that during the last uranium cycle between 2007 and 2017, 10-year period, the Namibian government put a moratorium on exploration and development. So a lot of projects that didn't get funded through that last downturn in the cycle during this period, those projects were either sitting idle or handed back to government for redeployment to business people like myself that have worked in Namibia. So this created a great opportunity now in the beginning of this cycle, where we started looking at Namibia again for uranium after having a number of successful years and a number of transactions in oil and gas and gold and other things. But now we're back in Namibia focusing on uranium. These projects that we are now in the process of, one we closed on and the other two that we're acquiring, are right next to two operating uranium mines in Namibia. These are hard rock Rossing-style uranium deposits. And what makes the current project really unique is that it had historical work done by very reputable people. So we're already starting with a known resource of about 7 million pounds attributed to Madison, with a larger envelope of potential exploration. So that creates a really good environment whereby, you're starting from a known, and this deposit is open in all directions. My geological team that I've worked with since Forces, in fact, Dr. Roger Lane, ex-Areva, and I basically transformed Forces Metals from a 20 million historic uranium deposit to a licensed 200 million some odd pounds of uranium today. Lower grade a little bit, and probably sub-economic, maybe getting close to economic today, but with current uranium prices in around the $67 range. These projects are starting to look really, really exciting because there's a long history of mining in Namibia.
Well, certainly Namibia does have a long history of mining. I was not aware that it had good uranium prospectivity as well. Of course, when you think about uranium properties and projects around the world, you immediately go to the Athabasca Basin, and of course, indeed, just north of that where Forum are exploring. How prolific is Namibia for uranium deposits?
Well, the Rossing, for example, is an open pit mine. It was discovered in the early 70s, commenced operations in 1976, and has been constantly in production. It's now owned by the Chinese government. And this also creates an opportunity for us. Is they're running out of ore in 2025. However, they have announced a pushback. So there's an opportunity there, and there's a well-funded mill sitting there. So that creates an opportunity for us. But in any event, they've been mining Namibia since the 70s. A new mine, again owned by the Chinese government, called Husep, has just gone into operation. So there's a long history of mining Namibia. There's a long history of exploration development in Namibia. So it's classified as a very stable country, a very favorable jurisdiction to put projects like Madison's doing into production, with a long history of costing. So although they're lower grade deposits than Rick's project that the viewers just listened to, Athabasca type deposits, these are very easy, accessible projects whereby you can mine a 300 ppm deposit open pit with very low cost extraction process, just an acid bath and distillation of that. And we've been doing that again since 76. So the costing, the accessibility, the permitting, and all these other things that are well familiar in Namibia for Madison create a great opportunity in this new rising environment, pricing uranium environment. So it's becoming very, very attractive.
Well, thank you for introducing Namibia as an area to explore for uranium. It's a place I will certainly investigate a bit more. That's a new one for me this evening. But I wonder if we can take a bit of a deeper dive into the projects there, and what are the key exploration milestones already achieved, and some of the latest updates from site.
Sure, yeah. So SRK, which is a world-renowned engineering firm, did the initial resource estimate back in 2015. There's been some work that's kicking around Namibia. We're working to get our hands on it, but our geological team have been working on site doing radiometric surveys. So we've expanded sort of the footprint of this original area, now greater than 5 kilometers long. Again, these are alaskites. They're kind of like gold veins, stacked gold veins in a geological environment that is well known in Namibia. And for those like our geological team that are very familiar with the rock types and such in the depositional environment, they have that expertise to follow these. So we've run radiometric surveys. We've identified areas of where we can expand the deposit, not only in depth and in strike length and all these other things, but also other interesting, higher grade radiometric signatures along strike to where the known deposit is. And then in that land package, which by the way is right adjacent to the Rossing mine property, we've identified some other potential exploration target areas in conjunction with sort of those historical workings that SRK had done back in, the 2015, 2016 era. So great opportunity for expansion.
A great opportunity for expansion. I picked up that's what you said. You want to expand the footprint, and you've identified areas where you want to expand. So just following on from that, in terms of looking into, well, I don't know, rest of this year or going into 2024, what's it looking like in terms of exploration plans and also corporate developments for the project in Namibia?
Yeah, so I mean, like we're gonna start our first drill program there, and we're gonna expand at depth and along strike.
Okay.
We're also going to do some additional testing on other areas that looked interesting to us that require. And by the way, drilling here is very inexpensive. So we use an RC rig, and we can geoprobe with an instrument in that hole that we create. So unlike diamond drilling in other areas, we can drive pickup trucks and everything right to these sites. We don't have trees, lakes, and all these other obstructions. Where exploring in Ontario, where our other project is a little more cumbersome. In Namibia, we can. I see my dog behind me. We can explore very inexpensively, very quickly, and it doesn't take a lot of work. We have this expertise, Dr. Roger Lane and myself. We deployed that type of strategy at Valencia, and we're very, very successful in identifying a very large target there. So that's what we're going to do at Madison. So drilling, more exploration, looking for new regions, new areas. And also we're in the process of acquiring 2 mining licenses that are again adjacent to our current EPL 8531. And this area also has great potential for uranium deposits, and on a mining license that have never been explored for uranium, because the licenses were issued for other commodities such as copper and dimension stone. So those to us also look as good as what we're doing right now and have great expansion potential.
Okay, so you do have ambitious plans to get active throughout next
Oh,
year, do
very.
your first drill program. That's very good to hear. In terms of actually getting active on the ground, I know there's often some stigma around uranium. People think, oh, it's dangerous, it's nuclear, etc. What's the kind of attitude, the local attitude, and also the government attitude to doing uranium exploration business within the country?
Very well established geological survey, very established community networks. For example, Rossing and the town of Arendis are very, very engaged in the whole process, from employment, from educational processes, from the infrastructure, and even subsequent foundations that are set up to handle all of these other parts of the business. But again, Namibia, unlike the Athabasca Basin, these are very low-grade deposits. These are 300 ppm deposits. So, it's nothing more than having earplugs or having, pods in your ears or any of the other things that are going on in our life. It doesn't present that kind of threat from a radioactive perspective. This is pretty natural stuff there and very low level. And in fact, if you're feeling a little cancerous, just go lay down on some yellow rocks and you'll probably feel better in a month or 2.
Thank you for that advice there. There's something I was told about before we came on air here, and it's the company recently signed a multi-year uranium forward sales agreement with an international banking organization. And I wonder if you can expand on the details of this news and how the agreement will deliver shareholder value going forward.
So on the back of verified resources in the ground, again, this is kind of a Dwayne Parnham first of its kind in his career, where I've had many of first. So I looked at how can we bridge traditional financing to the cryptocurrency environment at a time when crypto is going through their own events and evolution in, turning kind of meme ideas into real world asset backing tokens. So using uranium was a really unique opportunity because the uranium trade is very opaque. And by putting uranium on chain, it just makes it a more transparent transaction. So we just used our initial resource figures from the SRK verified resource, partnered with a DevFi team that are very, very knowledgeable in this case. And so they're putting out a uranium token. It's completely independent to us, although we're connected through the IBC, whereby we sold forward a portion of our resources on a 10-year contract. So it's really unique in that it enables us to participate in a way that's never been done before to create shareholder value through this alignment in the cryptocurrency industry.
Well, just on that point, there was a question that was sent to me. I was going to come to it in a minute, but as soon as you mention it, it is about the company's interest in tokenization and how it will boost treasury for the company. It is a very unique prospect, like you say.
It basically turns the funding of traditional mining upside down. And that's the disruption of what we're doing from the mining side, but also disrupting kind of the uranium trade. Maybe some players out there don't like the idea, but listen, this is a startup. It's 20 million pounds on the forward sales agreement. We share 50-50 the proceeds. So it's one way to fund our company, not just to take money from the crypto, because we want to participate in that value growth proposition and price discovery in uranium at a time when we strongly feel that we're in a very sustainable bull market for price of uranium. And the fundamentals today, in my expertise and what I've seen from 2007, is a lot stronger for a sustainable price movement going forward. And this is one way where Madison's shareholders can participate through our resource and how we can build these resources in the ground in a way that's a financial win for both sides of the equation there.
Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, I do like that idea. Yeah,
it's unique. These engineers have been working hard night and day. I've learned a lot about sort of the digital aspect of what's going on, and I tell you, it's really unique. And I think people got to take an understanding. It's really got to spend some time and learn what's going on, because the digitization of these types of assets, not just uranium, but probably many other real world assets, are going to be prominent in the future. And guys like me that have been, struggling for 30 years trying to get a startup project funded and deploy our expertise, our manager or technical and financial expertise to some of these startups has been really challenging. And I think that environment has even gotten worse. So having found a connection like this in a new way of disrupting sort of that traditional way of funding the companies by not diluting the heck out of our shareholders, not putting a lot of debt on our balance sheet, is really unique. It's new. A lot of people think it's gimmicky, but I'm going to tell you it's going to work, and we're going to prove that to the world.
Perfect. Well, I look forward to perhaps following that. Maybe we can catch up again and do a more in-depth interview on that specific element. But for now, that puts us nicely on time for some of the open Q&A. So I want to see if any questions have come in. I know here we go already. Do the current team have experience of delivering company growth elsewhere?
Meaning elsewhere, well, we're a uranium exploration development company, so we're focused on that. Dr. Lane and myself, he's ex-Areva. I'm mining startup professional with many successful wins for our shareholders. But we're completely focused on uranium. We're completely focused on delivering on our forward sales agreement, and also helping Namibia in the sense of employment and doing proper exploration and development and growing these projects for mutual benefit for everyone.
Okay, excellent, thank you. So see if any other questions have come in there. I know there was a couple that I did see pop up. Are you solely focused on Namibia?
Yeah, so we have two projects. We have one in Kenora, Ontario, which is really where the company started. But we joint ventured that project out to another private company. So they're going to spend less than $1 million over the next few years to earn their interest, and then we will have a carried interest. So Ontario, we've and it's a Rossing type model. So geologically thinking and perspective, it fit with our expertise and our understanding of finding, uranium deposits in Canada. However, with my experience in Namibia, 22 years, developed the Valencia project and, explored many other areas. We just looked at Namibia and just felt that it's, for shareholder value, it's a much simpler, easier, and has a way bigger scope of delivering value. So we're focused in Namibia right now.
Okay, thank you for that. I have some of the questions again. It's on the money front. Cash is king, of course, these days. I don't know what it's like over in Canada, but I know on the London markets it's been a little bit tough. But what's the cash runway looking like for the company, and of course your ambitious plans?
Yeah, we're cash positive, no debt, and the stream of cash that we're going to be experiencing through the tokenization is looking positive to achieve. Like, we don't need, again, Namibia is so inexpensive to come up with these and expand these deposits. So our cash burn is balanced, and our prospects are really good, and we're in a strong position.
Excellent. Okay, so let's see if I've got any more questions there. I know there was one I was just sent before. I've got to bring that up. Okay, so what is the resource upside in Namibia, and what percentage of the license footprint has been explored so far?
Oh, well, I mean, this would be speculative, but it's kind of not just Dwayne speaking, like he usually is very optimistic on things. But look, we're starting with a very small footprint in our overall size of the project. And that's just because the resource was already there. So we're probably looking at less than 10% of the project size where the initial deposit is. But I mean, look, we took Valencia. I mean, it's such a small little footprint. We're probably about 10 to 15 times the landmass that we had at Valencia. And we took that from 20 million historical to 200 million pounds. So it's not hard to do in Namibia. What's more important is finding, where these high grade core zones are. So you'll get broad mineralization generally in a lot of areas. And so a couple 100 million pounds, or more is not unachievable. It's just that you want to find economic grade uranium. So that's what we're focused on, and where they drilled the historical holes in Rossing North, it shows good prospectivity for some higher grade material. So that's going to be more important. We like the price of uranium right now at $60. Something in the 300 ppm range is near economic, depending on other variations and things that you need to consider when putting the PEA together. But it's really looking positive right now.
Okay, I just have another question that I have that I saw pop up there. What percentage of the business do the board of directors hold?
Oh, I'm probably the largest shareholder. I think I'm a little under 10% myself right now.
Okay.
I know all of the board members own shares at various levels, so I would probably give them another 3% above myself, and then a network of followers of mine. So I think we're very closely held stock, more maybe than others. There's only 26 million shares issued and outstanding. I can count probably 23 million of those. So very tight float. And if this this tokenization idea really works, then I think it's just going to be a real win for all of us.
Yeah, it sounds like it certainly does. Does the company have a permanent base camp out in Namibia?
Yeah, so this is we're going to have a news release tomorrow, but we have infrastructure. We're ready to go. So yeah, we have a home in Swakopmund. We have a geological staff that's already been there for a good part of this year.
Okay.
And I should say that I'm very pleased and happy to have a lot of the geological staff and admin staff that Roger and I worked with in the past have come and joined us. So we're really pleased of putting this team together and showing everybody what we can do.
Perfect. Okay, great. I think another question did come in. It's probably putting you on the spot here, but it's where does Dwayne see the forward top end of uranium pricing over the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I'm a super bull guy, so I'm looking. I think the fundamentals are really, really powerful right now, and there's a lot of reason for that. And I think physical supply right now is dried up. So, like 2007, we ran very quickly from $20 to $140 a pound just from the futures contracts. I think we could see something way higher than that this time around. So 3 to 5 years, I'm going to go on record. I'm going to give you a 3 to 5x from here.
Go on record and give a 3 to 5x from here. Well, thank you. You heard it here first. We can certainly keep an eye on that. In terms of, because I know very little about the company, I'm not sure what sort of following you have over with the North American investors there. But do you plan to go on site? Do you plan to sort of tell your story, show some pictures, or maybe do some things from site as you're active throughout in 2024?
Yeah, so we have a few pictures on our website over the past little while and changed them. Namibia is really unique because, I mean, you can drive your pickup truck right on top of a yellow staining and there's uranium. So, I mean, it kind of gets repetitive after a while, but I can assure you with the activity that's coming up on site with the drilling and all the stuff that we're going to be doing, I think you'll see a lot more sort of visuals, media visuals coming out of us as we, engage in this huge project that's coming. It's been a little bit slower the last few months, I have to admit. I think summer, North America, the markets haven't been really exciting and such. It's been a challenge, and I know a lot of us feel it. I've been through it before, but have patience and stay with it, and the rewards will come. There's absolutely no question about it in my mind.
Okay. Well, I am very intrigued about your company and your offering there, both, of course, in Namibia and on the tokenization. I wonder if it'd be worth doing some more interviews with you on those elements. Maybe when you're on site, we can do a bit of a catch up.
Be happy to. It'd be a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Dwayne, for your time. I hope you can also stick around. We are a little bit early, but I don't see any other questions coming in, so we may as well go to our next guest. Are you okay to stick around, Dwayne, for about half an hour? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be here. If you need me, I'll be in the background.
In the background. Well, thank you very much for your time so far, Dwayne, and we'll check in a few moments. So let's bring in our last guest now. Then that's Brian Robertson. He's a director at Appia Rare Earths and Uranium. Thank you very much for joining us today, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. And thanks for inviting Appia.
Yeah, no problem. Appia, again, a company that we haven't had on StockBox before, and the first time here you're on with us live, which is great. I'm glad to see you're not afraid to jump in at the deep end like our other guests this evening. But we're going to talk today about your 100% owned Elliott Lake uranium and rare earth property, which has a historical resource totaling 200 million pounds of uranium plus some rare earth elements there as well. And it's located adjacent to past producing uranium and rare earth element mines in northern Ontario. So again, just to start us off, perhaps, could you perhaps start us off with the kind of the elevator pitch, the high-level overview of the Elliott Lake project and the scale of opportunity that it presents?
Certainly. As you mentioned, this property is located in the famous Elliott Lake mining district, and that district produced over 200 billion pounds of U3O8 uranium over a 40-year period, and the average grade was 2.12 pounds per ton. And what happened in Elliott Lake was uranium prices dropped in the 90s, early 90s. Inflation increased, cost of energy increased. So these mines were faced with severe economic hardships, and they had to close. Now, they didn't close because they were deleted. Certainly large ore zones in Elliott Lake, they closed for economic reasons. So that was very interesting for Appia in 2007, 2008. The company did, in 2012, the company did a drill program there and produced a 43101 resource in 2013. Now, the historical resource, which was produced by major mining companies using methods that they use for evaluating deposits and confirm with actual mining, the historical resource was 264 million tons of uranium, or with containing somewhere around 200 million pounds of uranium oxide. And as I said, it was not 43101 compliant, but it was certainly carried out by qualified people at that time. So Appia did a resource estimate on 2 zones. Now, Appia has 5 zones in a land package of 31,000 acres. they looked at two of those zones, the Teasdale Lake zone and the Banana Lake. And for the Teasdale Lake zone, the 43-101 resource was 14.43 million tons, 8 million pounds of uranium, and 48,000 pounds of rare earths. Now, rare earths initially were not part of the reserves at Elliott Lake, although they did recover yttrium, but it was not included in the initial reserves, and it was not included in the historical resource. The inferred resource for Teasdale Lake was 42.5 million tons, 20.1 million pounds of U3O8, and 133,000 pounds of rare earths. The other zone was Banana Lake, had an inferred resource of 30.3 million tons, 27.6 million pounds of U3O8 at a grade of 0.912 pounds per ton. So that is the Elliott Lake project. Now, Appia also has high priority uranium projects in the Athabasca Basin. It also has very, very interesting rare earths project in the Athabasca Basin, and is currently doing drilling on a ionic clay project in Brazil.
Okay, well, it's interesting that the focus here is on the uranium side of the business. Of course, I mentioned earlier when I was talking to Dwayne about Namibia, of course, Saskatchewan being the obvious place for uranium. Ontario also apparently has lots of uranium.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing the size of the deposits in the Elliott Lake District. And the previous guest mentioned Kenora, which is to the west. There's deposits to the west of Elliott Lake. Mm-hmm. And before Athabasca came into the picture, Ontario was a big uranium producer in Canada.
I didn't know that either. I'm learning a lot tonight about uranium. So that's
lots
nice.
of history.
Indeed, yeah. And I know that recent developments have led the company to shift focus to this project particular, away from perhaps the other ones in the portfolio. What has driven this this more direct focus on Ontario?
Well, there are a couple things about the Elliott Lake deposits that Appia holds. I mentioned the drill program in 2007, 2008, 2012. And that drill program focused on those two zones. But the exciting thing that came out of that program was the discovery of rare earths in several zones, two zones that were sitting above the conventional zone that was mined at Elliott Lake. So the drilling exposed an upper reef, an intermediate quartzite, and a lower reef. Now, the lower reef was mined traditionally, but the upper reef and the intermediate quartzite were largely ignored, and they carried high values in rare earths, but nobody was interested in rare earths, and the price was low. So the focus was strictly on the lower reef, which carried high values in uranium, lower values in rare earths. So Appia, in doing that drilling, outlined and provided concrete evidence of the mineralization in those three reefs, particularly the rare earths mineralization. And that changed the picture for that deposit in the sense that now you had three reefs, much thicker mineralization. Traditionally, they mined 2.44 meters at Elliott Lake in the lower reef. They didn't mine the intermediate and they didn't mine the upper. But when you include those two additional reefs, then the size of the deposit increases significantly. Actually, it moves from 2.44 up to somewhere over 8 meters in height, and that's almost an increase of 4 times the volume that can be mined. So it comes to, and the other thing it adds is 2 sources of revenue, one from uranium, one from rare earths.
Mm-hmm.
Now those zones can be mined separately. They can be mined together. They can be mined just one at a time. So it provides a whole different economic situation for a mining scenario with varying prices of uranium and rare earths.
So it's really the rare earth credit there that's given you the more focus there, given what's going on in the economy now with rare earth elements, that little 3-letter acronym REE being more and more commonly used by world leaders and your average investor on the street a few years ago. No one would have known what that was. So that makes
We're
perfect.
we're actually focused on both.
Sure.
Uranium, of course, there's a tremendous change in the markets for uranium. Rare earths, also very exciting increases in prices. And we have this optionality of mining either one, the other, or all three, or all two in
All two.
3 separate zones.
Sure.
So it's a totally different picture than the traditional mining, historical mining that was carried out in Elliott Lake.
Okay, and it's interesting because looking at your NI 43101, it looks like you've included lower grade uranium as it captured the high grade rare earth elements. Could you talk a little bit more about the reasoning behind that?
Certainly. As I mentioned, what we're looking at now are 3 beds of mineralization: the upper reef, the intermediate quartzite, and the lower reef. Traditionally, they mined the lower reef, 2.44 meters in height. When you add the 3 beds together with significant economic mineralization of rare earths, then you have a zone that's 8 meters plus in height. So that changes the mining costs. You can now mechanize. You can increase your production levels, increase your throughput. And the other thing is, of course, you have 2 minerals that are contributing to that revenue stream. And you can vary your actual production depending on metal prices, etc. If you have high uranium prices, you can mine the lower reef, which is high in uranium. If you have high rare earth prices, then you can mine the upper reef. So that increase in volume significantly changes the whole mining scenario and some of the options that you can pursue during the life of a mine.
Does it make it slightly more challenging? I like the fact you've got both options there, but I mean, processing of both these elements, uranium and rare earth elements, is very different. Or would you not look to get into the processing side of it?
Actually, processing them is not that difficult. If you go and look at the historical metallurgical process in Elliott Lake, it's simply crush, grind, leach, and then ion exchange.
Okay.
And traditionally or historically, they recovered 95% of uranium, and the yttrium, which was one of the rare earths, leached very easily. So we did some metallurgical work, SGS here in Canada, carried out work for us on the drill core from the 2 deposits we drilled. And again, we got very high recoveries, 90% on the uranium side, 80 to 90% on the rare earths. So you have a very simple metallurgy and very high recoveries.
Okay, well, that's good to hear then. Very simple on both elements there. Now, will the company initially be targeting or with higher grade mineralization to capture both the economic contribution of uranium and rare earths?
We have that option. As I said, if we want to deal strictly with high grade uranium at a high higher uranium price, say rare earths is not as high at that time, then we could focus strictly on the lower reef. That was a traditional area that was mined in Elliott Lake. All of the mining actually came from the lower reef. So you can produce a high grade uranium from that lower reef. The other interesting thing is in historic resource, I mentioned we have 5 deposits. One of those deposits, the Canuck, uranium grade was much higher. It was 1.8 pounds per ton, U3O8. So a concept is you could go to a spoke and hub arrangement where you have a central mill. You can ship high grade from one of these 5 deposits. You can lower your cost. You can focus on high grade if you want, or most likely you would look at averaging out that grade over a longer mine life to capture the total value.
Thank you very much for that. I wonder if I can just finish off talking about this project before we go to the questions here. Just thinking of
Sure.
the potential of the project here and what your plans are really. Are you looking to increase the mineral resources here, or are you looking to get into the sort of the scoping study or the more advanced studies on the project?
Just to talk about the potential a bit, there's tremendous potential here to increase that resource, even though it's sitting at a historical resource was 200 million tons. That was based on what was within company boundaries at the time, and didn't include for Rio Algo. It didn't include what was sitting outside of those boundaries for other companies. As I mentioned, we have a very large land position, 31,000 acres. We no longer have to worry about those boundaries. And other companies drilled outside of the historical boundaries, and they found uranium mineralization. So we know, and just by the geology of Elliott Lake, we know that mineralization extends outside of the resource that we're looking at. The other part is, as I mentioned, when you look at combining the 3 zones, all of a sudden your resource increases significantly from 2.4 meters up to 8+ meters. That's a 400% increase. So we know that is there. We also know that there's areas to the south of the resource outlines that needs to be drilled. So certainly there's potential to significantly expand that resource.
Okay, and in terms of plans, activity plans?
The first thing to do is to assess in more detail exactly what we have right now. As I said, the last work that was done in this project was in 2013. We obviously have a significant change in uranium prices and rare earths. We need to assess what we have. We need to develop a plan going forward and a plan to finance what needs to be done given a different concept being brought to this deposit.
Okay, so really the market can wait to see some of those plans when they're ready to be shared.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Brian, so far. We will go to some of the questions that have come in. The first one here, in terms of funding, again, a question on funding. You have a huge group of projects across several jurisdictions. What is the funding position?
Current cash position is $2 million.
Okay.
Obviously, at some point, we will have to look at additional funding, but certainly we have cash at this point to move forward on our projects that we're doing, and also to do some assessment work on this new look at the Elliott Lake situation.
Okay, thank you for that. Nice quick answer there. Is it challenging to explore and in the future mine an ionic clay setting for rare earth elements?
Actually, the exploration side is very simple for two reasons. One, the project in Brazil is located in an area where there's infrastructure, roads, reasonable size city nearby. And it's actually, if you look at the pictures that are on our website, it's sort of in farmland country. So access is very simple. You can drill, they initially drilled with auger drills. You can drill with RC drills or diamond drills. So the exploration side is really simple. The mining side, again, is simple. It's open pit and it's in clays. You have very low cost mining. You don't have the drill blast situation. So it's actually a very simple, straightforward project.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. So I think there are a couple of other questions that I saw coming in. Does the board of directors have any connection with major developers or production companies? Have discussions been undertaken?
I think our president and CEO could give a better answer on that. In terms of where we're at right now, we're actually at an early stage. But given the resource that we have and the historical resources in Elliott Lake, as I said, we control a significant land position, 100% ownership in the heart of a major mining district. And if you look at the history of Elliott Lake, it was largely controlled by two mines, two companies, Denison and Rio Algoma. So if you're looking for a huge deposit with rare earths, with uranium, which is going to be in short supply, rare earths are now facing a number of issues, then you need to look at Elliott Lake and the deposits that are there.
Okay, well, maybe you will get some interest then. It seems like you're certainly positioning yourself ready for that. So there's some other questions that we had come in just before we went on air. And is the company looking to produce the Elliott Lake project, or is the strategy to process the high grade ore elsewhere or off-site?
Productions would be basically, I think, with another company. We have a huge resource here. It would require that level of financial strength and expertise to move that forward. As I mentioned, if you look at options, we're talking about 5 zones here. Now, they're not all connected, but Elliott Lake, if you put a central mill in and you brought everything to that central mill, it would significantly lower your cost of development and significantly lower your capital costs. So that's something I'm sure that will be looked at.
Okay, good. Well, it's nice that that infrastructure is in the area there, because it does help, of course, if it's already available for you to perhaps make use of. Are there any other, just thinking about the area, are there any other majors operating in the surrounding area of the Elliott Lake property?
Not that I know of at this time, but if you look at it historically, that whole camp was controlled by 2 majors, Denison and Rio Algoma. And as I mentioned, if you're a major company looking for a major deposit, you have to look at Elliott Lake.
Okay, excellent. What percentage do you think of the company's resources will be allocated towards the Elliott Lake project in the next 12 months, let's say?
We would have to assess that. As I said, we'd have to do a more in-depth analysis of the potential there, and then decide what resources would be assigned to that.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I think we're pretty much we've got all the questions. Oh, there's one just come in. Does China's significant control of rare earth element supply present an opportunity or a concern for companies such as yourself?
It certainly presents an opportunity in the sense that other countries are very concerned about that control that China has at the moment. not only in supply, but refining rare earths. And it's more on the refining side. So we've seen initiatives by United States and other countries to move into promoting production internally. And Canada would be in an excellent position to do that.
And I mean, what is the government's position? Do you know much about that? Are there grants available? Is there lots of encouragement for homegrown commodities such as rare earths?
There's certainly grants available. I don't know all of the details on that,
Okay.
but certainly there has been a strong push on the part of the governments to direct funding to exploration to develop in-country rare earths production.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Just, I wonder if I can just get a final thought, just on perhaps you, as in your position here as director of the company, just how you got involved with the company, and what is it you like about it? I know the CEO, Stephen Barriga, we have spoken to before in a different role. He's not available this evening, but just from your point of view, what's your experience in the mining and exploration space, and given uranium and rare earth experience as well, and what is it that attracted you to Appia?
Uh, just on the exploration side, I've been CEO of exploration companies carrying out work in Canada as well as Mexico. On the uranium side, I became very interested in uranium a number of years ago, 2002, 2007, 2008. And I spoke to Tom Grievous at that time about the Elliott Lake deposit. And actually, I did some consulting work on the exploration program, the drilling programs that were carried out at Elliott Lake. So I've always had a very strong interest in uranium because it's unique in terms of supply and demand. And I've truly enjoyed working with Tom and the team on this uranium project, but also looking at uranium in the Athabasca, looking at rare earths, which is gaining a lot of momentum.
And would you like to have would you like to have these projects, would you like to take them all the way to production, and would you have a sort of a timeline in mind, let's say, as to when I know it's unrealistic to sort of comment on that at this early stage, but I mean, is that the ultimate ambition here for the company?
I think that really comes down to the company's strategy. Personally, I think it's best to take these projects to a close to production stage where a major comes in and advances them at that stage. And I think for an exploration company, that's what creates the most value for shareholders. I've built mines, I've operated mines. I'm very familiar with the risks that are on that side. And I've seen junior exploration companies try to do that and fail miserably. So, in my opinion, the best value for shareholders is take it to the point where a major gets involved and they take the project.
Okay, so that is basically your ambition. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I see one question here has come in, and I don't know if there's any more, but if there are any more questions, please, for Brian, do let us know. Otherwise, we will go to the roundtable discussion in a couple of minutes. With Dwayne's bullish price prediction, do you have such a strong forecast?
Number one, I think we're at the early stages of a major bull market in uranium.
Okay.
And I've seen other forecasts, and I think one that is certainly relevant. It was a prediction that uranium will go to $350 US a pound. It'll peak at that point, and then it'll drop back to around $150, $120 a pound. And I think that's a pretty reasonable outlook, because if we look at what uranium did in the last bull run, it went 70 or 100 and some odd dollars a pound, I think, and from a much lower price. So I think we could certainly see that sort of ratio again.
Okay. Okay, well, okay, so an equally strong bullish position there. Okay, well, thank you very much, Brian. I don't think there's any other questions coming in for Appia at the moment, but I look forward. Thank you for introducing the company, and hopefully we can perhaps catch up again when you've got your exploration plans ready for the next active season. But what I'd like to do, I know we are a few minutes early here, and I'm not sure if Rick is available, but hopefully he won't be too far away, because I'd like to bring back our other guests here. So, of course, Dwayne and Brian. And Rick, if you are, that I can see you're not actually behind your camera at the moment. But if you can come back in a moment, that would be very useful, because, of course, what we want to do is really just have a bit of a discussion on a couple of, well, three topics really that are sort of poignant in the uranium sector at the moment, and then we can have a bit of a discussion about them. And the first point I want to sort of pose is regarding the current political attitude and the global landscape in nuclear power. So the question I want to put to you is, what are the current political views and public attitudes towards nuclear power globally, and how can the industry address concerns and shape positive public and political perspectives? So, Dwayne, let me ask you what your thoughts are on that first of all. So, on your thoughts on the current attitudes and what can be done to change them.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously had a pretty significant negative sentiment from a lot of the major uranium nuclear, power countries, Germany namely one, Japan the other, and I think we're starting to see that sort of decision kind of reversing itself again. So I think it's well understood, even though perhaps public sentiment may have been negative towards the nuclear energy. And like I mentioned before, I think we've only had 3 disasters over the last 50 or more years that kind of maybe have supported that public sentiment. But I don't think anyone with a lot more experience than myself in this arena can deny the fact that uranium and nuclear energy is the underlying sustainable energy that's going to fill the gap with this new green energy movement that's going on. You not only have sort of domestic growth and use in electricity, but now with this movement to EV and kind of this this 50-50 plan, or sorry, 2050 plan of net zero carbon emissions, nuclear energy is the only way to go.
Do you think that nuclear energy will? I mean, I would argue it is a green source of energy, but I know a lot of people wouldn't like to put it in that camp. But I guess you feel it is, and it's going to have to be play a major part in the green transition.
Yeah, and if you follow France, I think they've probably been one of the world leaders in nuclear energy from many years ago, and they do classify it as green. So, I don't know if that's the right definition, but it certainly fits the political narrative in what green and what would be safe energy. And I don't think there's I don't think you can argue the fact that consistently over the life cycle of nuclear energy, it hasn't been a sustainable, safe energy. I mean, we've had, like I said, a couple errors, but man, look at some of the other disasters in other arenas. It doesn't even compare. So I believe, and I think Rick touched on this mobile, or these modular type new technologies that are coming out. So I think we're advancing it, and I think it's going to be here. It's here to stay. There's no question. So it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting to go through these transitions and then realize, hey, we need that. So here we go again. Let's give it another go.
Yeah, and at government level, I mean, do you get any impression what governments are thinking? Because the public perception is one thing, but are the governments like supporting it, but perhaps not publicly coming out and saying it just yet, or is there still some people to be won over at government level?
I think governments are supporting it. I don't think you have a choice.
Yeah,
I think we're seeing that. I think that's probably what's underpinning these strong fundamentals in uranium pricing and this new, sustainable bull market that we're coming into. The uncertainty of the future with respect to nuclear is generally understood right now.
Okay. Well, I know Rick has come back. Thank you, Rick. I don't know if you missed the start of our discussions there. We're just talking really about current political views and public attitudes towards nuclear power and how the industry can address concerns and shape positive public and political perspectives. But before I get your opinion on that, I'll just ask Brian his thoughts, what he would like to add to the mix.
Well, I agree. I think there's been a paradigm shift in attitudes towards uranium. And I think you have to look at what happened in Germany in the sense that they shut down nuclear reactors. They went to other means, uh, solar, wind, etc. And what they found was that if you look at cost in Germany right now, their cost for power is 3 times what it is in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's one thing that changes the public's opinion and thinking, that's certainly what the cost is, the factor. But also, I think people have realized that nuclear, as was pointed out, is not the situation that was visualized with disaster situations, etc. And it's absolutely essential for base load power, and it's a source of clean power. So we've seen even, a lot of people now are moving towards going nuclear for those reasons. Mm-hmm. And that will change government's opinion. Governments react to voters, and that's the change that will come.
Indeed. Germany is a very interesting case, isn't it? Of course, they are in lots of... Yeah, I was talking to someone...
It's a good example of what not to do.
It's a good example of what not to do, yeah. And maybe it's about time. No, we won't get into political discussions on Germany. But yeah, I think a lot of the attitude has been driven by... as someone put it, a commodities expert I spoke to, energy policies have been driven by the voice of a 12-year-old. She's older than 12 now, but for too long, the governments have been taking their advice from a certain cohort of young people. And yeah, certainly Germany are an example of what not to do. Rick, I know you have quite a few opinions on this as well, don't you? So what you would like to add to the mix here?
Yeah, well, public opinion is we want to decarbonize the world. We're turning electric in our vehicles. Everyone wants windmills and solar panels to create energy for themselves. And yeah, these are great incremental sources of power, but they're not baseload energy. And I mean, in a growing economy and worldwide growth, we need baseload. We need lots of energy, and we need baseload energy. Not wind and solar are good incremental sources. Baseload energy is there's only two ways we can do it other than burning coal and oil: nuclear or hydro. Now, building dams and flooding vast tracts of arable land is not a very environmentally good idea. Mm-hmm. So what does that leave you with? Nuclear energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly, I think the sentiment is understanding that is the way of the future. We just need to educate the populace. Unfortunately, Hollywood and sensationalism of the media sometimes gets in the way of just good thinking,
Sure. So it comes down to education, really, to get the general public on board and show that it's safe and needed. I mean, it's not an easy task, though, is it?
Yeah, in my view, and that's why a big part of our community relations efforts is really an education to the locals about what nuclear power is all about, how it will help solve the carbon dioxide problem in the world, and that uranium mining is nothing to be feared. It's something that has been done for well over 50 years safely. So that's our job as explorers and developers to help educate for sure. I spend half my time not talking about my project. If I had a gold project, we just talk about the gold project because talking about gold is not an issue. But I spend half my time explaining the benefits of uranium to society and the world.
Right. Okay. Well, you're flying the flag and doing the work. Brian? Did you have a comment on that? Do you have to find yourself doing a similar thing around dinner tables, educating friends and family?
I think everyone and in the mining industry is particularly focused on uranium is involved with that.
Hmm.
But I think on the plus side, the public's attitude is actually changing. Nuclear is now viewed as clean energy.
Okay.
People are starting to understand the disadvantages of other sources such as solar and wind. They simply don't work. They don't provide the base load. That's the reality. And we saw some of that in California where everybody wants to go electric. Well, the governor, well, not last winter, was telling everybody don't plug your electric vehicle in. We got a blackout coming. So that's the reality.
Mm.
And I think that's changing for people. You know, people are, that information is getting to people and they're saying, well, whoa, where's this power coming from? We want clean energy. Well, that takes you back to nuclear.
Takes you back to nuclear. Yeah, indeed. And I see a lot these days around nuclear fusion as well. I know in the UK, I think one of the Brexit benefits, if there are many Brexit benefits to be had, is that we are doing our own thing on nuclear fusion now, leaving the Europeans to do their thing. And of course, we hear nuclear fusion quite a lot, but it seems to be certainly gaining some traction now. And again, that obviously requires fuel. I mean, Dwayne, do you have any sort of final comments, just listening to what the other two guys were saying on some of this discussion? Actually, sorry, Dwayne, you are unmuted.
Oh
I
yeah,
will just unmute you. There you go.
sorry, I'm muted. Dynamic shift back to the normal, I guess, is what I see, and
Okay.
rightfully so. But I mean, yeah, the geopolitical problems that we're seeing, I think it's going to add some benefit, but it's also creates a lot of unknown. So
Yeah.
um, in my mind, I think I'm quite clear what the future holds, but maybe others are questioning certain aspects of what interference could come. But I think it's pretty clear. Nuclear energy and particularly the three of us that are on the mining side that have been at it for the years that we have know that the miners have somehow been left out over the years, and this supply gap somehow has been filled. I mean, we consume about 190 million pounds of U3O a year, and we're producing somewhere in around 140, 150. So we've always had this perpetual feeling that we're going to have our day. So maybe we're having it now, guys. So let's enjoy it while we can.
Well, yeah, indeed. Maybe it started it. That does bring us nicely onto the next discussion point, which is the current investment trends and potential growth in the uranium exploration sector. And the question I want to pose, and I was just thinking as well on some of the prices that you guys mentioned earlier. Brian, I think you mentioned $350 per pound uranium. I think at the moment I was just
That's at
checking.
a peak.
That's the peak, yes, I agree. And then coming back to sort of 150, 120. But I look at the moment and it's just $69 a pound. I've got a price up on the screen there. So, you know, there's plenty of upside to be had there. But as we also mentioned earlier, there's not many uranium opportunities available. So I wonder what you think the primary factors are that are propelling investment in uranium exploration and how sustainable these trends are. Do you think we're going to see a lot more miners come on board? Do you think that perhaps the guys who are at it now, like you you've got the first mover advantage, and given following wins, that you will be some of the standout players in this space. Rick, let me come to you on your thoughts on that first.
Yeah, well, for the investment community to support our efforts, they always want to see price momentum, and we've seen that in the last month and a half, essentially 2 months, where the uranium price, when the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust came on and bought pretty much all the above ground inventory back in 2020, 21. The price jumped up from 30 to mid 50s, and then just recently, in the last 2 months, we've gone from the mid 50s to $70 in that range. So I personally see that as a continuing trend. So the money's going to come into the sector when we keep seeing that trend, and it is, most commodities need a little bit of price momentum to get the investment to discover these ore bodies and develop them.
I mean, the great thing about Forum is you have that discovery, don't you? You've just got to prove it up, really. I mean, do you think that there are enough players in this space? Do you think the world could be seeing perhaps a uranium shortfall, not enough uranium to meet demand?
Yeah, I mean, the utilities are scrambling right now. I mean, term contracts have been quite high in 2023. Because I think the utilities understand, I better get some uranium to fuel my reactor, because I can't let it shut down. so they're entering into these long-term contracts. So that's a big factor. I mean, Japan got started up again. I think that's been one of the things that added to this price momentum to the demand side. So the early stages, I can see the price of uranium certainly moving from here, given what we understand of the supply and demand scenario that's unfolding.
Okay. Brian, let me come to you next for your thoughts on this matter.
Just to build on what Rick said, I think there's a unique situation out there where utilities are becoming very concerned about uranium supply going forward.
Okay.
And for a uranium utility company, the uranium is not the big price factor in producing that electricity, cost factor. It's, the plant, et cetera, et cetera. So it would be in their best interest to look at buying into uranium companies, exploration companies, funding them to secure a long-term supply. And what that would require is them looking at, okay, where is there a large deposit, lots of potential and upside, and along the life. Mm-hmm. And I think, we've seen this regarding lithium, Tesla, etc. They moved into the mining companies. And I think utility companies at some point are going to have to do this, because the last thing they want to happen is we can't get uranium. Mm. And right now, uranium is in a deficit. And that's projected to continue out to somewhere around 2040. The reality is, and if you look at the Athabasca Basin, some of the chemical mines are going to run out of that high-grade ore in about 10 years. That's going to put a big squeeze on uranium supply. If you look at Kazatomprom, their joint venture with Russia wants uranium. That Kazatomprom provided about 43% of the uranium in 2019 to the world. Russia says, we're part owners, ship that uranium to us. If you're a utility company in the US, you're not part of that deal. So there's some real issues on the supply side. And I think that's what's driving the price. And I think that'll drive some of these utility companies to say, hey, we better look at some of these deposits.
That's
If I could add to that, as a young uranium geologist, you'll like this one. I worked for the Central Electricity Generating Board of Great Britain.
Okay.
They were exploring for uranium in Canada. That was in 1982, 83.
Okay.
So, and in, good point you brought up, Brian. TEPCO, Tokyo Electric Power, has been involved in some Athabasca joint ventures, as has Korean Electric Power. I mean, yeah, I'd like to see that evolve. It should.
I think it will.
I love what you said there, Brian. We have seen that firsthand with Tesla, with Volkswagen as well, partnering
Absolutely.
with to secure their supply chains, because they are genuinely scared. The car manufacturers are genuinely scared where they're going to get their raw materials from for
Sure.
the drive to electric vehicles. And I really like what you're saying there. It's getting me all excited. Dwayne, let me come to you for some of your thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, it's well kind of discussed if you follow Rick Rule. He's been an advocate of sort of a general mining cost across the globe at around $65 a pound, and we've been below that for I don't know how long, probably longer than I've been alive. It's hard for a miner to develop a project, fund it, and all these things when spot prices has been unbelievably below what average mining costs have been. So it's kind of always created a mystery for us. But again, I like mystery because it creates opportunity. So during the last cycle in 07 and such, where we jumped from the $20 range up to the 140 or so, and then Fukushima took it back down. There were 5 uranium companies across the globe for I don't know how many years. Then all of a sudden, 550 or more junior mining companies all of a sudden, got listed and raised capital and developed projects. Rick probably know, or Brian know, how many of those actually went into production from that last cycle. Probably very few. So we know there's uranium deposits out there, and it's just all a matter of economics and sustainable pricing discovery to realize a development plan for some of these projects. Because from discovery to production is what, 7 to 10 years normally. Some can go quicker, depending on the stage that project's at, and if it's location, jurisdiction, and all these other factors that come into play and favorable, then maybe we can get things done quicker. But you can't just start up a uranium mine tomorrow and fill this gap. So I think guys like us that are here doing our job will have the opportunity to make a difference and probably make our shareholders a few bucks.
Good.
What do you think, guys? Yeah, keep at it.
Right on, Dwayne. Well put.
Thank you.
Keep nodding. Thank you, Dwayne. Yeah, before I go on to our last discussion point, I just noticed a question has come in for Appia. This is live, and I do want to get it asked because this is the point. So Brian, if you could, it's a question I'll just show here. Are you or will you provide feedstock to the Saskatchewan Research Council?
Feedstock in the sense of a production scenario. We're basically still at the exploration stage, so I think it would be a bit early to say a definite yes to that. But in addition to where we're at is Saskatchewan Research Council, with their new plant being developed, etc., and where we're located in the basin, close to that plant location, it makes absolute sense that we would do that.
Okay, thank you for getting that one in. I do like to make sure we've got all the shareholder questions answered there. So the last discussion point, we're just nicely on time now, just talking about wanting to understand some of or evaluating the risks and opportunities for investors in the uranium market. As we've said, there's not many opportunities there. We're lucky enough to be presented with 3 this evening. So the question I want to put is, what best practices can be identified or tools that can be used for investors to diversify risks and understand some of the risks in the uranium sector when they're looking for investment opportunities? So I know we've got companies here at different stages of development, but Dwayne, let me come to you first. What sort of risk tools would be in your toolbox when you might be looking, when you've got your private investor head on looking to invest in compelling uranium projects? Maybe you want to invest in one you've seen this evening.
Yeah, I've been buying my stock constantly, so I've been a fan of that. But I look, I always maintain the jockey. I always bet on the management team. Like, you know, you have to have a team that's done it before, a team that's knowledgeable, a team that have the resources, team that they have the network. Because nothing's perfect in life, and we always come across barriers and roadblocks and situations and things. And so I always find that if I'm looking at an investment, then I want to see, you know, a real solid management team. I want to see a board that's been there and support the company and, you know, guys that are supporting their stock when it's down and, you know, not just cashing out when it's up. So those types of things are pretty common across any industry, but uranium in particular is different because it's been a strange commodity in the way the opaque trade has been over time, and it's not as easy. And Rick knows because he's been in gold, he's been in other commodities that just seem a lot simpler, I guess, where uranium has a complexity that needs a solid management team. So I would check that box first as a de-risking factor.
Okay, so management who puts has skin in the game, so to speak. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Brian, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think you have to start off by keeping it simple, and there are 3 areas I think that are key. Number 1, as mentioned, people. You want to be sure you have the right people heading up that company with the experience, etc. Second P is project, and that's very, very critical. You want to be in the right areas. You have to be very aware of geopolitical risk. We've seen places blow up recently in Niger. Serious problems. So project is important. And the other part is, of course, as mentioned, the financing. You want to have a company that's people are able to raise that money to keep that project moving forward, not only in the good times, but also in the bad times.
Okay. Rick, I'll give you the final word on here.
Oh. Okay, so, you know, given the geopolitics that's going on in this crazy world of ours,
sure,
what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine, what's happening in Niger, there, it's all affecting the uranium market. People don't realize that. 1/3 of the world's enriched uranium comes from Russia, which means that America's, United States, 104 reactors, 1/3 of them are being fueled by Russian enriched uranium. So so we need security of supply for uranium in the Western world. Canada and Namibia, great places to work, right? And we need it now. We need the uranium production. We need conversion and enrichment facilities, which are in Europe and the U.S. to expand in order to fuel this, you know, the growth in the nuclear energy sector, and it's going to happen. So the guys talked about it from a company specific standpoint, from an investor standpoint, which I imagine a number of your viewers are. You know, buy a producer, buy a developer, get a basket of explorers, you know, and diversify your portfolio in the uranium sector. And I think you're going to be, I think you will make a lot of money down the road.
Yeah, if I may say, I honestly believe uranium investment right now is an excellent hedge against inflation.
Okay, so almost like the powder yellow metal. Yeah, I'm making a very strange comparison there to gold, but
Yeah.
another yellow element that can be a hedge against inflation. Well, look,
Yeah.
thank you all. We've had a great discussion tonight. You've certainly excited me about the sector. There are not many opportunities there, but I did like what you said, Dwayne, about management, skin in the game. That's important, and a management team that has a track record. Of course, Rebecca there as well at Forum knows exactly what she's doing on the Thieland Basin, and yeah, a fair few diverse projects there. Okay, a couple in Canada and Namibia. I'd say a very new jurisdiction for me, and certainly understanding about uranium in that sector. And your tokenization is also very interesting element to your business there, Dwayne, at Madison Metals. So I'm hoping we can follow the stories from all of you a bit more as we continue down the path to 2050 and the green economy shift, and of course uranium playing quite a big part of that. But thank you all very much for your time. Of course, Rick from Forum Energy Metals and Rebecca, who I know has left with another appointment. Thank you both.
Yep,
Rick
she's
and
making
Rebecca.
a presentation right now as we speak.
She's making a presentation. Good for her. Good for her. So thank you very much, both of you, for your time. Dwayne from Madison Metals, and of course Brian from Appia Rare Earths and Uranium. Thank you all very much for your time this evening, and of course to everyone watching at home. I hope you all enjoyed it and got some insights into uranium. And of course, stick around, stay tuned, I should say. Subscribe on StockBox for all the latest news and developments in the mining and metal space. But for now, thank you everyone, and good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.